So lovely people, we've been keeping a real big treat up our sleeve. A speaker of immeasurable stature, a playwright, an author of best-selling books, a feminist to the core, really, and an activist who revolutionized how the world looks at the vagina. I'm not sure I want the world to look at my vagina, but still it was a big feat that she did with her play, The Vagina Monologues. I was actually fortunate enough to play woman number 3 in the Dutch version of The Vagina Monologues, and I can tell you, it was extremely liberating to play that. So since then, our guest has moved on. She has launched the V-Day and the 1 Billion Rising movements, and she's produced stunning books and plays like The Body of the World, Emotional Creature, and her most recent work, The Apology. It is such a joy and a huge honor to introduce you to Ensler.
Good morning, afternoon, brothers and sisters. I just want to take a moment to honor Chi and everybody who has put on, at Garden of Hope, who has put on this amazing weekend. Can we just take a moment? I just want to say a couple things up front. When I use the word woman, I mean to include all women, straight, bi, gay, trans, non-binary, queer, genderqueer, agender, and gender fluid. And everything I say here today is an offering, not a prescription. Take what works for you and leave the rest. It is a profound privilege, joy, and blessing to be in a room with frontline workers, with extraordinary women and men who have run, opened, kept open, sustained, built, improved, expanded shelters to protect and heal women all around the world. Thank you. I feel like I'm in the midst of a secret society which has literally been holding up the world. I know how hard this work is. I know the suffering you have witnessed and felt and allowed into your bodies and hearts and psyches. I know how much your health has suffered. I know how hard it is to fight day in and day out for legitimacy, for the powers that be to value your work, to support your work, to recognize your work. I know how tiring and defeating it is to be searching for funds day in and day out, when the cause of your work is so evidently vital and crucial, and every budget and every country should be spending more on the well-being and protection and uplifting of women than they are on bombs and guns and weapons of destruction. To witness year after year, woman after woman face insane violence, degradation, humiliation, and sometimes murder, without the world crying out in pain and joining you en masse in the struggle to end violence. So I really want to take this moment. I'm so happy I have this moment to bow to you, to celebrate you, to say, I see you, I know you. And I know millions of women across this planet would have been lost or dead without you. Can we all just take a moment to love ourselves, to appreciate each other? Can you actually turn to the person next to you and give them a hug and say thank you right now? racism, xenophobia, authoritarianism, morbid capitalism, immigrant bashing, transphobia, homophobia, and sickening misogyny. And we know in the midst of these terrible conditions, women are always the first to be impacted. Whether it's the selling of women's bodies through sex trafficking, or the rise in femicide and domestic violence in places as varied as France, where I just was. And I want to tell you, already this year, 114 women have already been killed by their spouses or partners, or in places like Spain, or Mexico, South Africa, Brazil, the United States, the list is endless. Whether it's the use of rape as a systematic weapon of war. But I also know that it is the escalation of these terrors demands an escalation of our bravery, our passion, imagination, joy, and fierce warrior spirit. So today I want to talk about where do we go now? How this is the moment to move into the next stage of our movement and radicalize ourselves and our shelters. This is the moment to support women who have suffered the greatest violence to become the greatest leaders of love and social change. As a survivor of enormous violence, I have been part and blessed to be part of a worldwide movement of women warriors called V-Day, which for the past 22 years has faced violence with courage and community. Rather than responding to violence with more violence, rather than killing ourselves and disappearing, we, the millions of us who have survived, have turned our pain into power. And I just want to say, all the people sitting in this room, we are the women warriors. And there's some ingredients that define us. We are fierce, we are obsessed, we can't be stopped, we're driven, we're not motivated by the need for fame or money, but the desire to make sure that what happened to us doesn't happen to any other woman. We are no longer afraid. We are often more willing to face anything for the safety and freedom of others, and we love to dance. We are citizens of another world, a world that we know is coming, where women are rising, we cherish humanity over nationhood, we have a wicked sense of humor. We are done being victims. We know that no one is coming to rescue us, and we would not want to be rescued. We have experienced our rage, depression, desire for revenge, and we have transformed them through grieving, through service. We live in our bodies. We are community makers. We bring everyone in. We know that the process of healing from violence is long and happens in stages, and sometimes it can happen all at once. We are the new breed of women, the love warriors who have passed through the pain and the wound. There is no one stronger than us on this planet, and like the phoenix, it is our time to rise. So, we probably have 1 billion warriors now across the planet, and we have the shelters. Here in this room, we have the network. We must ask ourselves now, how do we transform our shelters into revolutionary centers? How do we do that? Our safe houses into centers of political power. How do we move from offering solely social service to include and emphasize social justice? How do we weave a broader tapestry of issues, trans issues, migration, climate crisis, poverty, racism, xenophobia, workers' rights, into the work of ending violence, because all of these violences are connected and at the root and will expand and catalyze a wider, more powerful network for change. And I know, of course, many of you are already doing this. I have been disturbed for a very long time by the fact that women who are beaten and traumatized in their homes are the ones who are forced to leave, rather than the men who are beating them. But then I realized, now is the moment to take advantage of this, to leverage it. I have been blessed to have been on the life-altering journey, as you heard from my amazing, brave, powerful sister, Christine Chula, describe her yesterday, I've been amazed and just so moved to be on the adventure of co-founding City of Joy with her and Dr. Denis Mukwege. This process, this imagining, this co-creation with the women of Congo has birthed a most extraordinary place in consciousness. The model of City of Joy is turning pain to power, moving women from victims to survivors to leaders. The combination of offering sanctuary and healing, art in the form of dance and song, combined with the teaching of women their rights, self-defense, agriculture, leadership skills, is a winning trifecta. The alchemy of healing, art, and activism. Healing, art, and activism. When they are joined in a fluid process, miracles truly begin to happen. Rather than seeing shelters as only places that hide women, City of Joy heals them and educates them, inspires them to become totally visible in the life and in their communities. Its mission is to marshal and direct the trajectory of recovery into new social and political power. Women who come to City of Joy must commit to sharing what they have learned in their own communities, becoming leaders who bring other suffering women transformation. At the core is an understanding, and I know all of you know this, that one woman's healing is interwoven with her sisters and spins out to become a force for the radicalization of every survivor in their community. I'm not only recovering from myself, I'm not only facing my trauma and wound for my own betterment, but it is always imminently connected to my sister's transformation as well. This not only gives one courage, but also meaning. Capitalism and patriarchy are based on competitive individualism and soul fragmentation. This system leads us to believe that our own suffering is based on our individual failures. Something must be wrong with me or bad with me. But in fact, violence against women is the methodology that sustains racist patriarchy. And it is systemic, so our response must be collective and political. We must now move from solely focusing on healing and protecting the individual woman to healing and transforming the entire ecosystem that is predicated on violence towards women's bodies and the body of the earth. So, healing. I've been both moved and educated to see that the therapy of City of Joy is mainly done in groups. The belief is that a woman cannot heal unless the community heals, and each of our healing is connected to the healing of our sisters. Healing is then seen as a personal, social, cultural, and political act. We recover with and for and because of each other. When our recovery is linked into the tapestry of others, then we always have a place to turn to, and we are mutually responsible for each other's well-being. In fact, the guiding principles at City of Joy, two of them are, give what you want the most, and treat your sister's life as if it were your own. Activism is a source of powerful healing. When women can give what they need the most, they heal the broken parts inside. When women who have suffered blows of annihilation can see themselves having an impact on the world, their sense of being and meaning is restored. Their self-confidence is increased, and they become connected to reality beyond their own pain and suffering. When women leave City of Joy, they are leaders. From the time they are vetted, they must commit to bringing what they have learned back to their community. This commitment gives an extra incentive from the beginning to recover as they have a higher purpose. Violence often creates desolation, depression, and despair. Knowing you have a higher mission keeps you from falling under. Art, theater, storytelling, dance, song, poetry allows women to turn poison into medicine. I have watched at City of Joy women make songs out of unimaginable cruelty and pain. How through their creative impulses they make magic and beauty and inspiration. The work of creativity, of art, is the work of making the invisible visible, giving shape and meaning and sound and voice to what happens in the dark. It gives the artist agency. It creates wholeness out of cruelty. I've seen women at City of Joy put our 10 guiding principles to song, and how they dance and sing that song until the principles are ingrained in their beings. I've watched how dance is central to their daily activity, and how they release trauma all day long and find the deepest joy, which then spreads out through the entire environment. I cannot not overstate the power of joy. And dance is a direct pathway to both the release of rage and trauma and the escalation of joy. The last piece I want to add is men. Men. Unless they change, we will be doing this work for at least the next 8 years if climate catastrophe falls upon us. And honestly, I have to say, if we do not link our struggles to end the violence against women's body with the violence we are doing against the earth, there will be no future. But unless men change, unless men understand that this is their movement, violence against women has never been a woman's issue. It turns out we don't rape ourselves. We took this issue on because we're very generous and because we always fill in the gaps when things aren't being done. But now is the time for men to join us in this struggle. I was sexually abused by my father from the time I was 5 until the time I was 10. Then my father physically battered me regularly and almost murdered me several times until I left home. Someplace deep inside, I really believe my father was going to wake up one day out of his narcissistic, belligerent blindness, see me, feel me, and understand what he had done. That he would then step into his deepest, truest self and finally apologize. Guess what? It didn't happen. And yet the yearning for that apology never went away. It's 31 years since my father died. For over 22 of those years, I have spent my life struggling day in and day out to end violence against all women and girls. I have watched as women break the silence, share their stories, face attack, doubt, humiliation, open and sustain shelters, start hotlines. I've been part of a movement that is 70 years old, begun by African American women fighting off the rape of slave owners and white supremacists. I've witnessed the recent iteration of Me Too. I've seen a few men lose their jobs or standing, a couple go to prison, a few face public humiliation, but honestly, in all that time, I've never seen or heard any man make a thorough, sincere, public apology for sexual or domestic abuse. As a matter of fact, in 16,000 years of patriarchy, I've never read or seen a public apology by a man for sexual or domestic abuse. It occurred to me then that there must be something pretty central and critical about an apology. So I decided I wasn't waiting anymore. I was going to climb into my father and let him come into me, and I was going to write his apology to me. To say the words, to speak the truth that I needed to hear. This was a profound and excruciating and ultimately incredibly liberating experience. In the process, I learned the significance of an apology and the profound transformation and healing that can come from it. I learned what a true apology is, a process, a sacred commitment, a wrestling down of demons, a confrontation with our most concealed and controlling shadows. I learned that an apology has 4 stages, and all of them must be honored. The first is the willingness to self-interrogate, to delve into the origins of your being. What made you a man who became capable of committing rape or harassment or degradation or violence? To investigate what happened in one's childhood, family, culture. In my father's case, he was the last child, the accident that became the miracle. He was adored. But adoration is not love. Adoration is a projection of someone's idealized self-image onto you, forcing you to live up to their image at the expense of your own humanity. My father was never allowed to be tender, vulnerable, full of wonder, doubt, yearning. He was never allowed to cry. All those feelings had to be stifled, pushed down, and in doing so, they metastasized and eventually became what he called the shadow man, this buried creature who later surfaced as a monster. The second stage of an apology is a detailed accounting and admission of what you have actually done. Details are critical because liberation only comes through the details. Your accounting cannot be vague. It cannot be like, I'm sorry if I hurt you. I'm sorry if you feel bad. It cannot even be, I'm sorry if I sexually abused Those words do not mean anything. One must say what actually happened. Then I grabbed you by your hair and bent you over. Then I beat you and beat you against the wall. The investigation into details includes unmasking your real intentions and admitting them. I belittled you because I was jealous of your power and I wanted you to be less. Survivors are haunted by the why. Why would my father want to kill his own daughter? Why would my best friend drug and rape me? There is a difference between explanation and justification. Knowing the origin of a perpetrator's behavior helps create understanding. One of the hardest things writing this book was how deeply I didn't want to feel my father's pain. I didn't believe he had earned the right for me to feel his pain. But I remained connected to him through my anger. I was a permanent victim to his perpetrator. I was stuck in a paradigm that he had designed. As my father's mother told my father, anger is a potion you mix for a friend but you drink yourself. Feeling my father's pain and suffering, ironically, was the thing that released me from his paradigm. The third stage is opening your heart and being and allowing yourself to feel what your victim felt when you were abusing her. Allowing your heart to break, allowing yourself to feel the nightmare inside her, the betrayal and the horror, and then allowing yourself to see and feel and know the long-term impact of your violation, what happened in your life because of it, who did she become or not become because of your actions. And the fourth stage, of course, is taking responsibility for your actions, making amends. All of these steps indicating you have undergone a deep and profound experience that has changed you and made it impossible for you ever to repeat this behavior again. So why would anyone want to undergo such a grueling and emotional process? The answer is simple: freedom. No one who commits violence or suffering upon another is free of that action. It contaminates one's whole spirit and being, and without amends often creates more darkness, depression, self-hatred, and violence. The apology, the true apology, frees the victim, but it also frees the perpetrator, allowing them deep reflection and the ability to change their ways in life. And for those of you who cannot get an apology from a perpetrator, I have to tell you something. The experience of writing this apology to myself was a very profound and life-shifting experience. We all know that once we've been invaded by a perpetrator, if they've raped us, if they've harassed us, if they've degraded us, if they've done anything, they actually get inside us, and they live there. We often know our perpetrators better than we know ourselves, particularly if they're in our families. We learn how to read their footsteps and the sounds of their voices in order to protect ourselves. By writing my father's apology, I changed how my father lived inside me. I moved him from a monster to an apologist, a terrifying entity to a broken little boy. In doing so, he lost all power and agency over me. And I have to say, there was a moment at the end of the book when my father says, or I say, I don't really know who wrote this book, but my father says, "Old man, be gone." And I don't know if you ever saw Peter Pan, but there's a moment at the end when Tinkerbell just goes, shh. That's what happened. My father just went, shh, and he hasn't been back. The women at City of Joy have done this exercise, writing letters to themselves from their perpetrators, and the outcomes have been wildly transformative and healing. I believe it can be a profound tool in releasing one from victimization, but any survivor who embarks on this apology process needs support and love and should not do this alone. We cannot underestimate the power of our imaginations. It is our most astonishing tool in shifting the trauma and karma that has numbed or frozen our life force. And the deeper and more specific my imagining and conjuring in this book, the more liberation I experienced. My father is gone, he's not coming back. People have asked me throughout the tour of the book, what will it take to get men to want to apologize? This, of course, is the $25 million question. At one point in the book, my father told me that to be an apologist is to be a traitor to men. Once one man admits he knows what he did is wrong, the whole story of patriarchy will come crumbling down. So what we need now is for men to become willing gender traitors and to stand with us and apologize so we can all get free. Let me say in closing that I believe now is the moment on this planet where we're either going to disappear or we're going to actually evolve into a newer vibration, a higher vibration, and turn the world into a new direction. It is time to radicalize and activate the most powerful group of women, survivors on this planet, transforming them into a fierce, revolutionary love force that can remake this world. Now is the time to turn our shelters into not only places of protection, but places of insurrection. Now is the time for restorative justice through true apology and atonement and bringing men into the process. And now is the time to activate this extraordinary network of shelters, creating solidarity and strategies that move us from surviving to thriving, from hiding to taking center stage, from victims to leaders, ushering a new time on this planet. Now is the time to rise in our movement, 1 billion rising, in our bodies, in our imaginations, to rise and in rising, raise the global vibrations so we come into our highest, most potent, most loving selves together. I honor every single person in this room, and it's our time. Be bold, be dangerous, be outrageous. Let's take back our planet. Thank you so much.